Committee are pleased about that.
The Honourable Shane Jones.
Mr Chair, tēnā koe. I'd like to acknowledge the Minister and the Chair and remind New Zealanders that he, amongst other things, sir, comes from an agricultural background on the Kapiti coast and has reminded us that those people who do have four-wheel drives that are used both on the farm and on the roads, they're going to have to obey the rules. I shall go back and tell my father, who is a farmer, there's a new set of rules coming. He will be distressed to learn that red tape is creeping upwards. But, sir, despite that small lapse, we will support this bill.
Thank you.
We will support this bill, sir, because irrespective of whoever the party is in the House, it's necessary to ensure that we've got a way of funding the roads of Aotearoa. Now, sir, it's of immense disappointment to us that the money has been squandered on ideological trophies driven by Stephen Joyce called roads of national significance, but that's an electoral issue. That's an electoral issue. That's an electoral issue, sir. We'll put that to the side. We're here on the serious administrative constitutional business of clauses 3 to 6, part 1. So amongst other things as to why we are going to support this bill during the committee stages, that we had our differences on the select committee, and sir, it's a select committee that works well. We have the robust presentations from Tauhenare. We have the chair. Well, we have an absent-minded chair occasionally, sir, in the form of Mr Bennett, but by and large, sir, with a contribution from Dunedin from time to time, when the man is not bemoaning the fact that they're largely unemployed in Dunedin as a consequence of poor transport capital asset decisions and where they might be made, not in Aotearoa but overseas. But sir, let me come back to the clauses comprising the front of the bill. So I mustn't forget about the member for Botany Bay. Although he is physically present, we often feel spiritually he's elsewhere, possibly in the ACT Party or the Libertarian Party, but that aside, he's a relatively new member and he's got a great future ahead of him, sir. Great future ahead of him. As Mr Boscawen and Mr ACT leader depart, he'll be able to occupy that space of extreme right, lots of noise, lots of heat, but very, very little lucidity. But, sir, I'll come back to the bill because it deserves serious consideration, and talking about those members is not actually in the spirit of seriousness. So modernisation is necessary, and for those reasons, irrespective of whoever, as I said earlier, is in the is occupying the benches of Treasury, we cannot have a system governing the collection of fees from our vehicles dependent on RUC, because that's a key component to how we fund our roading system. Now, sir, there is an area that we'll be picking up on later, because this is a rather broad part of the bill. We remain concerned, if not distressed, as to what level of participation there will be once the regulatory power-making authorities are exercised. And the actual RUC, sir, levies, at the end of the day, they're not going to be prescribed in the body of the legislation. They're going to be the products of subordinate legislation or regulation. Now, sir, you may or may not know that our former deputy leader, indeed he was our leader, Geoffrey Palmer, waxed lyrically about this in decades gone by, and so that remains a very timely reminder to those of us who are in the business of lawmaking, that when we actually move to beyond the parent legislation and passing regulations, please bear in mind, Mr Minister, that for each regulation that's passed, we should be confident about stripping 2, 3, 4, 5 regulations off the books, so that, sir, not only are we maintaining we're avoiding maintaining redundant regulation, but it's a good discipline to those of us who have come from a background and see how difficult it is to run firms, see how difficult it is to maintain compliance, that those of us who are in that parliamentary mode now, sir, remind ourselves that as we put one regulation in place, try and take 2, 3, 4 or 5 away. Now, sir, easier said than done, and it may be said that I'm being a tad frivolous in this regard, but, sir, transport along with fisheries is an area that blights the legislative landscape because there are so many regulations. I doubt if there's a single bureaucrat, lawyer or parliamentarian or indeed stakeholder who fully understands the breadth of all of those regulations. So, sir, I'd like to say that it's important that that particular principle is borne in mind. So the underlying debate in our select committee about this bill, sir, related to the fact that a number of carriers were concerned that they wouldn't be actually paying for the load or lack of load on the vehicle at a particular point in time. Rather, sir, it was going to be the carrying capacity. But, sir, let it be said, we will support this bill throughout the committee stages, and will continue to highlight those areas, sir, that need further refinement or elaboration as the time permits.
The Honourable Tauhanari.
Mr. Chair, thank you very much.